All right, you ready to start the pod? All right. Go ahead.
I was getting the live stream pulled up
Oh,
first.
okay. Well, then I'll stop that recording.
My bad.
No, you good. You good. We are live. We do not have any viewers yet. I'll tweet it in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and start the recording and we'll start the pod. So take it away.
What is up, team? And welcome back to another episode of the Technical Foul Podcast. You're joined today by the three of us. I'm Jack Anderson. To my right, or on y'all's screen, to my right, he's actually directly below me on my screen, but it's Sanders Oakley. And then JP is currently driving, so essentially he's like calling in, but he's still on Discord, so you won't see JP, but you'll hear quite a bit from JP if I have to imagine. What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Fantastic. Went out and did some return Christmas shopping today. Clothes that don't fit, stuff like that. Traded
Sure.
it in. So did that. Repping the jersey, getting ready for tonight's game. Had to. Cannot wait to hang this on the wall. It's gonna look so good on the wall in the studio. I'm so excited for that. But yeah, no, I'm doing fantastic. Ready to talk about three of the games from not this weekend because today is Friday, but from the last 2 days, last 48 hours. Not excited to talk about one of them, but we power through and we do what we have to. Um, Transfer portal, yeah, we'll see. Maybe we get some stuff today as we're live. Who knows? I contemplated like just staying up till midnight. Actually, I was up till midnight, but I was just like, the clock hit midnight, and I was like, all right, the portal's open. This is hype. And then I
Well, you didn't have to
realized
be
that,
up till midnight because it was like 11 your time, right? It opened 12 Eastern,
yeah.
so like really not even that late.
Yeah, well, I was up that late anyway. But then I was like, oh, the portal's open, let's go. And then I realized, oh, wait, nothing actually happens. It's not like,
It's just everyone officially entering. Like we
Yeah.
just get a repost. It's like, hey, we already knew he was leaving. Like
Yeah.
Sam Levitt has officially entered the portal. All right, that's
Yeah.
not new news.
I saw On3 added their second 5-star to the portal, running
Well, let
back
me guess.
from Louisville. Oh, sorry.
Okay, never mind. Too late. I think I would have guessed it. I'm not positive.
I would not have gotten that. I didn't realize how good he was at Louisville this last season until I saw that he was a 5-star.
Texas fans are very confident they're landing both Cam Coleman and him, which would be
Wow.
a crazy transfer haul.
It would
Yeah.
it would not be that crazy. Like it'd be a very Texas thing to do, very believable. It would be like
Well,
really
it's like you just get
good.
the top running back and top receiver out of the portal. I feel like it's not like unbelievable, but like I would enjoy getting the top running back and top receiver
Yeah.
out of the portal personally.
Yeah, so that was cool to see. But yeah, I'm ready for tonight's game. Not nervous. I'm not sick of my stomach. Not nauseous as I thought I might be. But we'll see. We're still
Just
6 hours from kickoff. I see you are wearing the hat of your team that's still playing, as opposed to the team that is no longer playing. So
Yeah, this hat hasn't been worn yet. It will get worn at some point. I got this one for my birthday, this one for Christmas. I did open them at the same time, essentially. But
yeah, that's what happens when you have a birthday on or near Christmas. My cousin has a Christmas Eve birthday. So that was always tough for him. People get, oh, this is just your combined birthday and Christmas present. It's like that's
see,
not how that
combined is
works.
tough.
Yeah,
Yeah, at
that's
least
tough.
I'm far enough away. I didn't typically get combined. I'm not gonna be here on my birthday, so I wanted to open up my parents' gift.
Yeah.
And it's a fire gift, despite my mom saying it was gonna be lame.
Are you gonna save it for a special
Because
occasion? First Saturday in August or late August, early September, whenever y'all start.
Well, here's what I told my mom. That made her think I wasn't gonna like the gifts. I said I don't really wear hats anymore except at work.
Mhm.
The state of the shape hat. Oh, holy crap! The shape of the state hat is like a little different, so I probably won't wear this one to work. But the A&M one is just like really standard, pretty curved bill. Like
Yeah.
I'll just probably wear this one to work a lot, so it probably will get pretty gross. But it probably will get worn more than the state hat.
Yeah.
That being said, how are you doing, JP? We haven't heard from you yet, so I'm hoping the audio you're synced up. Maybe you've been talking this whole time and didn't realize you were muted. That's a chance as well. But how are you doing?
No, I've not been muted. I just been listening, just like
Okay,
a
perfect.
listener at this pod would.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. Driving back to Georgia right now. Spent the week out here in Tupelo. Being
Fire.
on break, it feels like, like this week the last 3 days has felt like a weekend with it being New Year's Eve and New
Yep.
Year's Day,
Hmm.
and it's
Yep.
it's just a Friday. We're rolling into the weekend now,
Yep.
which is kind of weird.
It's very weird.
And yeah, and with no job, you don't feel like there's no like semblance of a week very normally. So it's
I
a weird experience driving home on a Friday than a Monday per se.
I keep being like, oh, like I got to go to church tomorrow, and then being like, wait a second, no, I don't. It's not Saturday, and then like the next day I'll be like, oh, like okay, now it's like we probably have church tomorrow. Nope, still just another day. So I feel that completely. Before we get to the playoff games, any last words on the state game tonight? Anything new you want to toss out? Considering
Yes, yes.
kickoff is
I
in
have
5 hours.
six
Do you
six
have
hours.
something?
It's 7 Central, I
Six
thought.
hours? Okay, maybe
Yeah.
it's 7 Central.
Our creative team, I know some of the guys on that team. I've texted them. They cooked the jersey reveal. Jack is just munching. All right, cool. The jersey reveal that they did was incredible. The Batman, the Dark Knight, but the Dog Knight. Did you see the video they did, Jack? You've got to go watch it. Go to Twitter and go watch the jersey reveal. You may not care as much because it's not your team. I don't know. Maybe I'm incredibly biased, but the video just went so hard. So
Sure.
highly recommend checking that out. We're wearing all black jerseys with the interlocking MSU. Like it's a dream situation. But the creative team, I know the guys there. They did an awesome job with it. It's been really cool seeing what they've done all season long. The videos in the stadium have been awesome. So just a shout out to our
Sure.
creative team and the work they've done all season. And now I think their best work they just did getting ready for the bowl game. It looks so good. It's Kamario Taylor in the all black. He's like in a parking garage. It's got a Batman music and Batman quotes in the background. It's just so well done.
I've seen the first 5 seconds of the video numerous times.
And you just didn't watch the whole
Numerous
thing?
times. No, why would I?
Oh, Jack. You take the state hat off, bro. Take the state hat off. This is ridiculous.
I will be rooting for state tonight. The question is, will I watch more of the state game or more of the Spurs game?
The answer is definitely the Spurs game. That's not a
100%.
question. Yeah, that's not a question.
Despite no Wimby tonight.
Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't see that. I just heard that he got hurt. What's the situation there? It was knee, right?
Hyperextension of his knee. It looked really horrible, but he claims he could have come back into the game, and they just didn't let him. And he's not. He didn't travel to Indiana for the game tonight, but is officially listed as questionable for our game Sunday. So he'll probably miss a game or two.
Okay, that's not
Which
too bad.
is
I didn't see it, and so I just heard everyone say that it was horrible. So I didn't
Jokic
know.
just hyperextended his knee and missed a month, and so as soon as everyone saw what
Oh.
he did, we were expecting him to probably Wimby to miss a month too. But nope, we're good. We're chilling.
What
Thankfully,
what did you say the expected time was?
he'll miss a game or two.
A game or two? Hold on, I'm watching it real
Yep.
quick. Ooh, ouch, ouch. I almost
Yeah.
did that at a angle ball on. I played angle ball for New Year's Eve. Oh, it was so good to be back out there. Because we haven't played angle ball in Starkville in like 3 months. And
Sure.
I was like, and I've been playing frisbee a little bit, and frisbee's been fun. And I was like, you know what? Maybe frisbee's like as fun as angle ball. And the minute I got out there, I was just like, nope, not the same at all. Angle ball's so much better. The bet was me winning a Harris. Went out there, right? We played, and we were like, none of us have played in like 2 or 3 months. Can the three of us combined hit 10 points? And we did. Harris hit 8, I hit 2, and Win hit 1. So,
Y'all made it closer than it should have been. Shout out Harris for carrying.
hey,
Y'all better give,
me and
like,
Win had a
Autumn
lot of his
lunch or
assists.
something.
We had a lot of his assists. I'll say this. And then Win also sold one of my assists. I mean, I gave him a layup and he just whiffed it. So
He doesn't hit layups. He
No.
doesn't hit layups. So.
He Win may be washed, and he'll be the first to say that. But super fun game. Anyway, I was running back like fast break defense, closing out, and then I tried to stop. And when I planted my foot, instead of like bending my knee the right way, it kind of just like stayed stiff and went a little bit the wrong way.
Sure.
And then I was like, whoa, that was really close to being bad. But I was fine. It was just like a scary moment.
Sure.
But yeah, Engelball was great. But yeah, I'm ready. That's my week.
So
This is not my weekend, but that's my updates. We've got you avoided the flu. Shout out you for that. You were saying last episode that you were a little scared, but you avoided it, so that's big.
I was never scared. Me, Jackson, and Lucy looked each other in the eyes night one. Jackson's a good friend of mine. Lucy's my wife, and we said we are not getting the flu.
All right.
It's mind over matter in these situations,
All right.
and it's that simple. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Enough rambling. Not that I wasn't happy to hear how your weekend went, Sanders, but I think we should dive into these games. We could go chronological order. I assume we can
Yep.
start with the Wednesday night game. It's gonna be so hard to not stay like Friday night and Saturday.
Yeah.
But the Wednesday night game, the 10 seed Miami Hurricanes against the 2 seed Ohio State Buckeyes in the Cotton Bowl Classic, and Miami wins 24-14. Completely slows down that Ohio State offense. Ends up getting a pick six in that game to add to their tally. It's not like their offense was fantastic, but it was a pretty efficient offense. They ran the ball when they needed to, got a big touchdown late when they needed to push it to 2 scores. And like I said, they come out and win 24-14. A huge win for the ACC. You knock off the defending champs. A lot of people thought the ACC was washed. No good, worst Power Four conference. Sure, you only got one team in, but that team has now beat an SEC team and a Big Ten team. It's pretty massive for that conference and massive for Miami, because I didn't know this, but the ACC doesn't share the buyout or the payout.
Yeah.
Miami just pockets the $14 million, goes straight to NIL, improvements,
That
bonuses,
is
whatever.
ridiculous. Yeah.
But that's massive. That's just a massive win for the program, for the conference. But what are y'all's thoughts on this game? What did y'all see on the field? Off the field implications? What
Yeah.
y'all got?
I'll get us started. First thing was the I liked the refereeing in the game. It was a very physical game. We kind of knew that going in. Ohio State, a physical team, hasn't scored a lot of points in big matchups this year. 14 against Texas to start the season, and then 10 against Indiana to end the season. So I was expecting a physical matchup, especially with that Miami defensive line and offensive line. The way they were able to kind of wear A&M down in the first round, and then just kind of they won that game because of their run game. Not because of big plays through the air, but because they were able to just continually just keep chugging away on the ground. So we were expecting physical, we got physical, and the rest kind of let it happen. I think that we had 0 penalties through the first like 3.5 quarters. We didn't have a penalty until near the end, and it finishes in the fourth quarter. We had 1 penalty, 2 penalties back to back. Or near back to back in the fourth quarter. So that I liked that. I liked the physicality. There was not a lot of play, and also I wasn't a fan, and we kind of saw this play out in later games. But fans view penalties and situations differently than bystanders and impartial fans.
Sure.
So watching this game, there was no moment where I was like, "This is ridiculous. How is that not PI? How is that not holding?" I loved the way the referees handled it. I thought that was a lot more fun to watch than letting the referees determine the outcome of the game. The other thing I'll say is I'm now ready to pass judgment on this Ohio State offense. Now that the season's over and everything's written for this Ohio State offense, they were not pulling punches. I think we can safely say that. That's something we talked about. This is not me genuinely passing judgment, because the season's over, the book is written. But just to kind of address something we talked about all season, we said, is this Ohio State offense pulling punches? Are they saving it for the big games? Because they had that Texas game to start the season, and then they had a pretty light schedule from there on. And we asked constantly, every time we talked about them, well, are they holding on for the Michigan game? Are they holding on to punches for Big Ten or for a championship? Are they trying to win back to back? And now we can clearly say, and clearly it's clear the answer is no. The Ohio State offense just was not as dynamic as it was last year, which is really, really wild to say given the playmakers they had, but it did not click in the same way. And maybe I'm sure JP has some thoughts on that, and we can talk about Ryan Day and the play calling and handing that over. But yeah, there's my hot take for this season is, now that it's all said and done, Ohio State was not pulling punches. But yeah, those are kind of my 2 big takeaways. Is the physicality was really, really awesome, and then the offense from Ohio State was underwhelming, and it kind of answers the question we had all season.
Yeah, I mean, the run game just never really got going. It had its moments in the regular season, but it was never fantastic. 1.9 yards per rush in this game. You actually moved the ball through the air pretty well. but when you just have zero run game, it gets really hard against that Miami front seven to like avoid negative plays, keep yourself on time in terms of your drive script, and so you go 3 for 10 on third downs, and that really hurts. It just for me, it kind of feels like the Ohio State offense lacked a killer instinct throughout the season in terms of like they didn't really hit the big plays in the big moments. In the Indiana game, they ended up getting stopped on 4th and 1. Then they turn around and try and kick the field goal because they can't score in the red zone the next time, and they don't convert that. Moments in this game, the couple interceptions, but they just, I don't know. It feels like they weren't able to just finish. I don't really know the word for it, but killer instinct is kind of how I view it. What do you think, JP?
To see the trend, and we saw it through 4 games, and it was, as more games were played, the conversation grew louder between the announcers of does the first round bye affect these teams? Is it worth getting the first round bye?
Sure.
And I think the biggest factor is it hurts them in terms of finding an offensive rhythm through 8 games played, 8 first quarters played by the teams that got the bye through 2 years for this playoff. Just 3 points have been scored in the first quarter. Just three total points. And if you're going to start a game that slow offensively, it's going to be really hard to, get out of that slug. Only
Sure.
professional teams are really good at finding ways to get back to what, they have been productive on. You can see professional teams have a really slow half and then turn it on. You can see the Buffalo Bills go down 21-0 and then score 5 straight touchdowns. But in college, it's a lot harder to do that. The kids get in their own head. The lights get too bright. Sayin is sacked, I think it's 4 or 5 times before the Indiana game, and he was sacked 4 times in the Indiana game, and then sacked 5 times, if I'm not mistaken, against Miami. And so the pass rush gets to you, which means your clock speeds up, and it's harder to push the ball down the field. And when you have the elite weapons, it makes it's even that more damaging. I think
Yeah.
for the Ohio State offense this year, it was pretty evident as we saw in these last 2 games that the lack of having really truly talented tailbacks like they had last year in Travion Henderson and Quinshot Judkins was the reason, that was the sword that ended up costing them but Bo Jackson was dynamic, and especially in that Michigan game, he was really, really solid. But Bo Jackson is just a true freshman.
Yeah.
It's hard to rely on him as the lights get bright and we're in these playoff moments. And, Julian Sayin had a terrific year. His completion percentage had been through the roof, all year, but he got into the bright lights. The defense got better. The talent got better on the opposing side. And you saw that affect him. I think that is, in large part, 3 of the reasons why you saw an Ohio State offense not produce to the way you wanted. And then I think another credit has to go to these teams that were playing the teams that got the bye. So everybody that played the team that got the bye in those first quarters, in those first halves, they were dominating time of possession. And I don't know if that was necessarily, on purpose, because a lot of the time those teams that had the bye got 3 and outs or 4 and outs to start their games. But these teams were dominating the clock and really making it that much more difficult. Miami, goes 3 and out on their first drive, but then they had that long sustaining drive where they end up fumbling into the red zone. Ohio State finally gets it back. They go 4 and out. Then Miami goes down and scores, and you have the pick 6. I think it's something to note. We talk about this sport a ton in terms of how the calendar's a little broken, and we talk about that mainly and how that affects the roster movement and how that affects the coaching carousel. But it may end up becoming a conversation in the future of how does it affect the games, because it clearly has affected all 8 of the quarterfinal games so far in this 12-team era. is these teams can't score in the first quarter because of such a long layoff. And if the games had been moved up, I think Dan Lanning has proposed a really great system for it. Have the season end on January 1st with the national championship and move all the games up a week or
Yep.
two and really go. If we're going to have the professional model so much like the NFL, why don't we just adopt their playoff structure as well? Of course, it's hard to do that with divisions, but just have the playoff and then play it every single week. There are no weeks off in between. The teams that get the bye maybe get 1 week off instead
Sure.
of we're talking about as we're leading up to these games, we're talking about these teams of it's hard to remember them because we haven't seen them for literally a month. We haven't seen Ohio State play since it was December and it's January now. I think it's a great conversation that's going to have to be talked about in the offseason. Honestly, I think I'm going to be surprised if the playoff format isn't moved and changed again like it was after
Agreed.
last year. They did a really good job, and I think fixing the giving the buys to conference champions to just giving it to the top 4 teams. Now you have this huge group of 5 discussion, and yet we continue to still have blowouts with the Power 5 teams against each other. I'll be shocked, honestly, that the format isn't changed to some degree this offseason. In terms of the actual game, though, you have to give so much credit to Mario Cristobal and that Miami staff and
100%.
Shannon Dawson. I thought Shannon Dawson, offensive coordinator for Miami, outcoached Ryan Day in this game, and he did that in allowing Carson Beck to throw the football, but making sure he's throwing it in areas that the amount of risk. Having the tailback catching game out of the backfield where they converted multiple first downs to Mark Fletcher or the other backs, having the quick outs, the short game. It's for me as a coach myself and an offensive coordinator myself in the video game. That's how you attack the teams that are really, really talented defensively. It's because they are so great, especially in that front 7, at getting after the quarterback, or they're so great at stopping the run. If you go to the short game early and you go to it often, it allows you to open up deeper plays down the field. It allows you to see, it keeps the corners coming up. And so even if they go zone and they go like cover 3, your corner can't just slide and start, stepping back to the sticks. And that's how you have the interceptions on those out routes where the corner just reads the quarterback's eyes, sees it, drops back, and he's where he's not supposed to be in that spot. That's not his zone, but he reads the eyes, and there's no threat of anything in front of him. When you attack them short and up front early on, it allows you to hit the in cuts and the out cuts. And Carson Beck I got to give him a ton of credit. He was super accurate all night. In his post-game press conference, he's talking about how much work they had put in this year, being in the facility at 5 a.m. and staying until 6 p.m., which is hilarious because these are collegiate athletes. When the hell do they go to class? The similar story was told about Fernando Mendoza during the Rose Bowl game about how all of his classes are online since he graduated from Cal. But you have to give Carson. I want to give Carson Beck a ton of credit because he was very accurate in this game. He didn't put the ball in troubling situations. He did not turn the ball over, which I think is going to be the key for them going forward and has been the key this season in all reality. And then a ton of credit to Mario Cristobal as well, because so much conversation was obviously had and has been had about Miami, wanting them to be back. You have the legends and Michael Irvin and Ray Lewis there on the sideline. And there's all that pressure, of being the ACC team that, lost in 2 dramatic fashions so far this year. You shouldn't be in the playoff according to a lot of the college football public. And yet you're given this opportunity and you take full advantage of it. And now he's going to change, the course of that program. As you said, as you guys said earlier, that's $14 million in buyout money that they're going to have. It's also, it's a testament to what this sport needs to more so become. And that's not quick reactions, and that's not, burning someone down on the ground and firing them after 3 years. Mario Cristobal, the last 4 years, has improved every single year. 4 years ago, they were 9-3, lost in a bowl game. The next year, they got to 10 wins, won a bowl game. Last year, they're right there on the doorstep of the playoff. They have a Heisman Trophy contender. You have this devastating loss to Syracuse year. This year, they went to playoff games.
We've lost you, JP, in terms of you may want to restart that sentence.
What was the last thing you heard?
Talking about how they've improved. Last thing I really heard was like last year they were right on the doorstep. Had a Heisman finalist at QB.
Yeah, last year Heisman finalist QB. This year they sneak into the playoff. They win 2 playoff games, and it looks like the sky is the limit going forward for Miami. That is the way college football teams should be built. That's the way programs should be built. And that's the 100%. Way expectations should go forward. Expect such hot starts. Don't expect transfer portal classes to hit so quickly. And like Sanders was talking, or you guys were talking earlier about, Texas maybe landing those top transfer portal. Jay not the one running back in this last year's class. True. I don't think he got over 100 total yards for Oklahoma. And so nothing is guaranteed through the portal. Build your program from the ground up. You see this with Dan Lanning in Oregon right now. He's improved every single year, and now his team is in the semifinals. So a ton of credit to Mario Cristobal, to Carson Beck, and the Miami Hurricanes. I doubted them coming in, but I'll say the same thing I said like when Bama beat Oklahoma, and we had Bama fans in here and Bama fans online saying, well, why did you doubt us? Well, why wouldn't I doubt you? Everything so far this season gave me reason to do so. Your lowest moments gave me reason to do so. And so congratulations for proving us wrong in that moment, but we have every right to have the doubts that we did.
Yeah, I think all those are really good points. The Miami is kind of once again showing why line of scrimmage matters so much, and everyone knows it. But when you watch them play, it just kind of reinforces that fact. Defensive line, unbelievably dominant. Really their front seven defensively is so good. Can kind of make up for a weaker back seven, in my opinion, or defensive back room. And then the offensive line has just been really good in the run game in key moments, and have just been wearing teams down the stretch. So when they really need a drive to put the game away, in the A&M game and in the Ohio State game, they found that drive both times because of their offensive line, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then that just puts Carson Beck in an ideal situation for him. He's not turned the ball over. He didn't turn the ball over in the A&M game. He didn't turn it over in this game, and that's massive. And it's because he's just allowed to play the script and doesn't have to do too much. And that's not me trying to dog on him because he's played those scripts perfectly. He's done a fantastic job with it. He's been a big part of them winning, but they've also done a good job of making his job easy, in my opinion, and that's how they found themselves in the semifinals.
Yeah, and that's something I was gonna talk about the quarterback play because Finn brought it up about how he called Sayin a true freshman. Sayin's a redshirt freshman. He redshirted it. He played in the. Well, excuse me. He was an early enrollee, I guess, at Alabama. Transferred to Ohio State. So, or does that make him? Is he? He's a.
He technically is a true. Like, it's weird, but.
Yeah, maybe he is a true. That's confusing because he was an early enroll. Anyway, he's a young guy.
Young kid.
Young guy.
Yep.
And the reality is like Carson Beck. He's had those lows that we've seen before, where he'll lose games with multiple turnovers. But he's had the highs, right? And he has something that Sayin doesn't have, and that is 2 years of starter experience, now 3, 2 at Georgia, playing an SEC gauntlet. He's played in the SEC championship. Like, he's had the kind of like pressure on him that Sayin has never had to experience before, or at least not. Maybe you can call that Big Ten championship his experience, but that's one game versus 3 seasons of that kind of pressure and that kind of experience. So this was always kind of a possibility, right? That Carson Beck's experience would show and that his maturity would show, just in the same way that it was always a possibility that he was going to have a terrible game and throw multiple picks.
Sure.
But we just got a high end Carson Beck game, which he was a first round he was projected to be the number 1 overall pick going into the 2024 season. Like he has always had the potential for a really, really good game. We've just seen some really bad games from him in key moments. So that's, I think, a big part of it is, yeah, Miami won the quarterback battle. Carson Beck had a good game. And then also, he also pointed out the same thing that we've been talking about is the trenches. Miami's front seven, like you talked about, Jack, their ability to run the ball was better than Ohio State's. They kind of dominated it down there, which I was not expecting them to dominate, not in that manner. So yeah, it's huge win for Miami and a great game from Beck and from that defense. Any other thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I want
Not
to.
really. Oh, go ahead.
I want to toot my own horn a little bit.
You did pick Miami. Congrats.
I picked Miami to win. Please, say congrats in the chat. Thank you guys for the congrats.
I'm clapping for you right now.
I think as well. The other one was Malachi Tony. I fully expected him to get hit hard and be forced to handle some tough situations. He fumbles the football twice in this game, but full credit to him in those 2 moments. They don't, end up being lost fumbles, and the ball bounces your way and it literally lands perfectly right back in his hand one time.
Yeah.
I said Matt Patricia was going to try to take away Malachi Tony, all day, and it was going to come down to Miami beating Ohio State. But CJ Daniels had to do it. Keely Marion had to do it. Malachi Tony only has 5 catches, 16 yards, and 1 carry on the ground. And I wasn't a 1 carry on. They were going to throw a pass. I may be thinking about a different game, but I just wanted to toot my own horn there. Because it's in this day and age, you need to toot your own horn if you're gonna get flamed as much for having bad takes. So
that's fair.
I am. It's not a New Year's resolution, but I do think going forward, we need to not be afraid to be less humble and take our wins when we get them.
I was about to say, you got to celebrate the wins. You truly do. Unfortunately, I don't have any wins to celebrate from this round, so I can't really start off my win celebrating.
Yeah.
But hey, my time will come at some point, I'm sure. But that is a good point. Let's move on to the next game.
Yeah. Oregon versus Texas Tech.
Oregon versus Texas Tech. Yep.
The G5 team.
Not a good look for Texas Tech. I'll go ahead and say that as I'm pulling up the page real quick. There it is. Oregon and Texas Tech faced off yesterday morning that is, in the Orange Bowl, and it was all Oregon. Their offense, slow start, just like Texas Tech's offense got off to a slow start. The difference is Oregon found ways to, despite starting slow, kick a couple field goals, found ways to overcome that slow start. Texas Tech just really struggled all day to get anything going offensively. Their one drive that was kind of successful, Morton ends up throwing a pick towards the back end of it, so they don't get any points. And that being said, talking about the offense not being successful, the biggest indicator of that is the fact that there's a 0 next to their name when you look on ESPN when it comes to the score. Scored 0 points in the college football playoff game. Took some heat off of my Aggies. We're now not the team that has scored the least points in a college football playoff game. That goes to Texas Tech. But they lose this game 23-0 to Oregon. Another victory for the Big Ten. There's now 2 Big Ten teams in the Final Four. Huge win for Oregon. Bad luck for Texas Tech, but still a good season. I mean, considering where they have been the past couple years, what they look to accomplish, winning the Big 12, and kind of this, year 1, year 2 of this new NIL landscape that they're in. I think it's a big accomplishment for them. But what are y'all's thoughts on this game?
Is this our first shutout in college football playoff history? I'm trying to think back.
No. Michigan State got shut out by Bama.
Yep. Okay.
And I think either the first or second year.
That would have been
And
year
there may,
2.
Clemson shut out Ohio State as well.
Okay.
So
In a game.
it's the lowest scoring in the expanded. I should say the
Yeah, and
expanded
it
playoff.
puts Texas Tech in some good company of other teams that just got absolutely dominated. So yeah, a really, really tough look for Texas Tech. And I'll say this. I tweeted it out. Love a good tweet. The Texas Tech defense deserves so much better than what that offense gave them. I saw someone who said it way funnier. They were like, could the defensive coordinator potentially sue the offensive coordinator? Like, is there any possibility of that? Because it was bad. And the Oregon defense is very good. Well, I will give them that credit, but that's not the kind of situation. And it kind of goes back to what we just talked about in the Ohio State Miami game. Is offenses in this with this first round bye have come out rusty, and it's really hard to get your momentum back. And it isn't like this Texas Tech offense was elite by any means throughout the season. We kind of knew what they were coming into this. They were a team that was very reliant on defense, much like Oklahoma. And so now we go into this game, and they've got that first round bye curse where the offense is potentially going to struggle, and they do. They do not come out firing on all cylinders. The Oregon defense comes out, and they hold them, and they force turnovers. And it just kind of, they looked outmatched that offense against the Oregon defense, and they end up suffering the consequences and not scoring any points. But that Texas Tech defense is so good. Watching them play, I think that they're up there with like the best in the country with like the Ohio State or like fantastic defense. Watching them play was really, really, really good defense against that Oregon offense that I like a lot. Holding them to 23 was really good, but the struggles offensively were impossible to overcome.
Yeah, and the touchdown, the touchdown they gave up, or one of the touchdowns they gave up, was legitimately just, I guess, a fumble, like a strip sack.
Yeah.
And so Oregon's offense starts with the ball on the Texas Tech 6-yard line, and they score. And then the other touchdown you give up is the game's basically already over. So they really did all they could. They did a fantastic job of limiting Oregon, especially on the ground. And you just can't win a game when you score 0 points. It's not possible.
Yeah. Did they force any turnovers, or was it?
Yeah, Dante Moore threw it.
Yeah.
They forced one.
Yeah, they forced one. So
now they still lost the turnover margin by 3.
Yeah, 4-1. But they did everything they could. JP, what are your thoughts from this game?
For me, my biggest takeaway, is David Bailey's top 10 pick, probably top 5. Talk about playing yourself into that on a national stage. He was absolutely tremendous, unbelievable, all that. And physically, he dominated the right tackle for Oregon much of the game. Being in, batting down the football, his jump. The dude jumps like his straight line speed, all of that. I think David Bailey, you're looking at a top 10, top 5 pick as we start our draft prep here on Monday. What draft?
Dude,
we lost you again, JP.
Yeah, we're losing a good bit. Whatever you said. I heard you say David Bailey's gonna be a top 10, top 5 guy.
He's gonna look really good in the Commander's uniform for sure.
Whoa, you can't have him and Kelly Jones. Like, that's not happening.
You never know.
Unless I take that back. It could happen because you can draft Kelly Jones next year. So
sure,
that's how you can have both. But yeah, JP, if you want to take it back from the top 10, top 5, playing his way into a top 10 pick.
Yeah, my other takeaway was, I think I'm taking Dante Moore as my top quarterback. That doesn't mean he's going number 1 overall, but I think he's the best quarterback out of the ones that are available. I think he's better than Ty Simpson, obviously, but I do think he's better than Fernando Mendoza. The way he played against this elite defense, who statistically absolutely dominated Oregon. As Jack said, they gave up a touchdown on the 6-yard line, and then they gave up a touchdown when the game is essentially over. But Oregon's running game, 47 carries for 64 yards. That's 1.4 per carry. If you take out the sacks, which there were multiple of them, it's roughly just under 2 yards per carry. No running game at all. And against that
Yeah.
pass front, that's just going to put you in terrible situations. We saw that with Julian Sand at Ohio State literally 12 hours before. He had no run game. Reuben Bain and Akeem Mesidor got after him. Dante Moore was getting sacked in this game, and he had a lot of negative plays, and the interception was bad. But outside of that, 26 for 33, 234, no touchdowns. He was really, really dynamic in terms of his ball placement, in terms of his ability to read the defense, go from his first read to his second read and get to his third read, spreading the ball around the park too. You have a ton of guys that catch passes in this game. Also, it continues to be a conversation all season. Oregon's lack of health at the receiving core, not having your number one option in Evan Stewart coming into the year and then responding in the way that you have this year. You had some health coming back. Kenyon Sadiq returns for this game. But Malik Benson has a great day. DeCorian Moore, your true freshman, only has three catches in this game. I thought Dante Moore also I'm big on eye tests, and watching him compared to all of the other quarterbacks that I watched this weekend. I said weekend and it's the week. Watching all of these quarterbacks, especially comparing him to Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson, and of course he'll get compared to Kamario Taylor tonight, and I think he'll be ill in comparison. But still, in this year's draft, because Kamario is not draft eligible, I'm all over Dante Moore as the number one overall quarterback prospect. I think he looks the part. I think he throws the part. He's got good running ability. He's able to use his legs in a few key moments. He clearly shows poise. They talked about it on the broadcast. He's a lead by example kind of leader. He's not one that's gonna yell at his teammates or try to go give his teammates pep talks. He's just gonna go out there and play football. And I think that'll work very fine because he's that skilled that he's able to do something like that. His competitive resolve all year as well, and his clutchness in key moments. I think of, you think of the Iowa game where he leads the game-winning drive with the rain all day, and they're having a tough day, and he hits a beautiful pass down the sideline. He had a few of those in this game as well. Those are my two biggest takeaways. They're both draft relevant in terms of David Bailey and Dante Moore. I thought really showed himself on a national stage in a game that wasn't fun to watch. I imagine it'll get maybe 1 to 1.5 Chali's on the Josh Pate Chali rating scale. David Bailey and Dante Moore were an unbelievable watch, and I think any team in the NFL will be lucky to be able to draft those guys here in April.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I still think it's going to be hard to get Dante Moore out of college just because Oregon is the money there, the opportunities there. It could be hard to convince a guy to leave because it's a different era than it used to be. But yeah, if he keeps playing like this and wins another playoff game or has another good playoff game, it probably would be hard to turn down the first overall pick. I just feel like if it's not a guarantee, that could be challenging. We'll see.
I mean, I think the smoke is trending towards him going, just with what we've been hearing about Oregon, kind of looking around for a portal QB, stuff like that. Because I think he's playing well enough to go top 5, even if he doesn't go number 1, and that is really hard to pass up. I have been very impressed with him as well. Now we get to see what he can do in the rematch against Indiana.
Let's see.
Game.
Sven just said that Moore is not the best quarterback. He thinks Mendoza is better than Moore. And I think that's a close argument. I think that's a fair argument. JP, I know that Mendoza has grown a lot on you this season. You were very low on him coming into the season, not saying you didn't see it with the footwork and the tape he had from his California career. Would you agree that those are? I mean, it's maybe if it's not 1 and 2, it's like 1A or 1B.
No, I think Mendoza's grown a ton in my eyes, but I don't think he's, of the caliber of Dante Moore. And I don't think he's necessarily on that same level. He's going to get drafted more than likely in the top 10, but it almost feels like Cam Ward a little bit last year, where like in a normal year maybe he would be in the teens.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think he's still got a lot.
All right, we lost you again,
We
JP.
lost you again. But
I've watched Indiana.
I think the biggest thing I'll step in. As Finn, like I don't think whether you like Mendoza or more better, saying there's no one even close to Mendoza is something that I'm definitely going to have to disagree with. I do think that Mendoza will go first overall. I think that's where it's trending right now. But to act like he's just far and away better than anyone else is just, I think that's disingenuous. Um, Also, Indiana runs a lot of RPO. You don't necessarily see the same RPO concepts in the NFL in terms of downfield because of the difference in rules, different play styles, yada yada yada. So I also don't necessarily know if I agree that Indiana's offense is just a real pro style offense. I do think Mendoza has a lot of things that are pro ready. I think he's very accurate. The way he throws the out route, for example, he can throw sideline to sideline. Massive. He's going to be good in the NFL, in my opinion. But to act like he's just a cut above, I definitely don't agree with that.
Yeah. Do we want to move on to Alabama versus Indiana? Let's do a quick. So Sven said a lot of stuff. We addressed the quarterback stuff and we gave our thoughts there. You addressed you don't. He said there's no curse, and then it's all about preparation.
I was going to talk about that as we get into the next game.
Yeah, let's do that. So we can go ahead and dive into Alabama, Indiana, and it's up. So you're good to go.
The Rose Bowl. It was a rainy Rose Bowl, which is pretty rare, but it was one nonetheless. It was Alabama versus Indiana. The underdog, Alabama, versus the Titans of the 2025 season, the Indiana Hoosiers. And it was close for a while, and then the floodgates just kind of opened, and Indiana starts running all over Alabama. Alabama's offense has no answer. They score 3 points all game. Ty Simpson fractures a rib towards the end of the first half, doesn't play the second half. It's Austin Mack time, something some Alabama fans wanted to see. It doesn't matter. It doesn't help. Indiana just runs them out of the building, wins 38-3. Y'all's thoughts on this game? Key factor. We can start with what Sven was talking about, right? The buzz, and JP's already talked about on the show of it's hard for the bye teams. They come out rusty. 3 of them lost. Indiana was the lone team that got the bye to win, and they did so resoundingly. But I think we can look at Signetti's own comments before the game and talk about, Indiana dominated this game, but they did start slow. And Signetti himself said that he was not happy with the week of practice that they had. He didn't feel like it was up to standard. He was worried. They had one more practice when he was making those comments. He was like, hopefully we get this stuff figured out. Maybe that's why they started slow. But it's not a curse, Finn. You're right. One of our chatters, but it is a challenge that you have to overcome as a coach to keep your kids and your players in the right mindset, to figure out how to use the extra time to your advantage and keep them game ready and keep their mind sharp. So yeah, Indiana succeeded in doing that, but it doesn't mean it wasn't hard and that it doesn't exist for the other teams too, in my opinion. If y'all don't have anything to add to that, y'all can just other takeaways from the game. What did y'all see? I mean, I don't think that there's anything too surprising, but it is just still insane that we're in a world where Indiana wins a playoff game against Alabama 38-3. It's wild to think about.
Was the field goal? This is more of a goofy thing, but it's the first thing that comes to mind because just looking at the score, 38-3. Alabama scores 3 points. Was there one field goal? They're down 24-0 at the time, I believe. Logic would dictate that you go for the touchdown to try and make it a 2-possession game. Instead, they kick it. Was that just so that they could not? They weren't shut out. Do you think there was? Is that the thought process there? Is that they just didn't want anyone to be able to say, "Oh, Alabama got shut out," because it doesn't really make sense to kick it in that situation, in my opinion.
doesn't really make sense. It definitely could be that. I will say it was 4th and goal on the 10. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like they were on the 1 or 2 yard line and they kicked it. Um, so as a DeBoer guy, I'm gonna say it wasn't to not get shut out because he typically is pretty aggressive, and it was just we're not getting 10 yards. We're gonna be realistic here
Yeah.
because it also wasn't the 4th quarter yet. But there was also a world where he was like, I just want to get points on this board. Like
Yeah.
we need
We just can't
something.
get shut out. Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome to the 3 point club, Alabama. Happy to have you. Anything on this game, JP?
Yeah. But to speak into Sven, I agree with you, Jack. And I guess in that way I agree with Sven as well. It's not a curse. I like Jack said, it is a challenge. It's something to deal with. It's something you have to somehow try to overcome. And Indiana dealt with it themselves. They went 3 and out, -5 yards in that first drive. Bama's moving the ball. They forced a punt. And then they have that long, tantalizing drive. And it looks like they're about to score before the first quarter ends. And I had a big text ready to send if they had, but they didn't because they were rusty. And on 3rd and 9, the play call doesn't get into Mendoza. And Mendoza continues to ask for the play call. And he wants the play call from his offensive coordinator. He doesn't get it. He calls, it would appear, his own play, a handoff on an inside zone. On 3rd and 9, they pick up barely a yard and they're forced to kick a field goal. They very easily should have scored a touchdown. They had been and have been one of the best red zone teams offensively all year. And so that was kind of surprising at that moment. Um, it's something you deal with. It's being out of the rhythm of play calling, of calling an offensive game plan, of getting the play call in, of having the right timing on certain moments. And so Indiana dealt with it too. They just thankfully were able to have, the defensive output where they're the only team in the entire playoff to win the first quarter with, or not lose the first quarter, I should say, with these teams that have gotten the bye. They're the first team to have not lost the first quarter, or it's at least just tied. So like full credit to them for at
Yeah.
least managing that. And a large part of that was because they were able to go on that long drive, were able to run the football so well. You guys talked about the field goal again. In that scenario, it makes no sense to kick it. I fully agree there. So I guess it is just to put points on the board and maybe have some kind of confidence going forward. But at that point in the game where it's near the end of the third quarter and you're down 3 scores, and with how much of the clock Indiana was controlling, there is no reason to not go for it. And it's the problem because when it's 2nd and goal or 1st and goal, and when you can't run the football all season, when you're inside the goal with goal to go, you have to be able to run the football well.
Yeah.
And they can't, and they haven't all season. And because they're not able to rely on it, they have 4th and goal from the 10 instead. It's been a struggle for Alabama all season. It will be a problem that they must solve this offseason. They have to solve that going forward if they want to be, of championship caliber this next year. All of the teams that are sitting there in the semifinals have been able to run the football all year, and especially been able to run the football so far in the playoff. Mark Fletcher has had 2 great games. Kawan Lacey's one of the best backs in football. Indiana with Black and Hemby are excellent. And then Oregon has led college football in yards per carry this year. It's a must. You have to be able to run the football to some kind of degree, even if it is with your quarterback. I You said it yourself, Jack. Like, it is crazy. We live in a world that Indiana, is dominating Alabama in a game, and of course, all the Alabama fans are super upset about there not being flags in certain moments, and they're thinking that I've got a Bama fan that was sitting next to me asking if Alabama was throwing this game We have an Alabama fan, asking for phantom holding calls or holding calls when they're down 3 scores, and it doesn't really even matter at that point. Um, you know, Sanders said there was a game at the top of this show that he didn't really want to talk about. I have to imagine it was this game. As a
Yeah,
Bama fan himself,
I'd imagine it
um,
hurts for sure. That's a good point.
but Indiana has been so well coached this year, and they have played with such confidence. And one of the words I use with Mendoza is conviction, football with conviction, and that is because they execute and they are efficient. The two words is Signetti loves so much. They're
Yeah.
also so disciplined, just so easy to them. They the plays they practice from day one, they run to perfection. And so, like, one of the knocks I'd say on Mendoza right now is, oh, we haven't seen him play through, multiple reads. There's not really many times this year where he is on his third read in a progression. He's normally
Yeah.
he finds his first read, or he hits his second read, or he does that stupid goofy scramble where it looks like he should have been sacked, but somehow he picks up, 5 or 6 yards. He hasn't really gotten to his third read. So that's something he'll have to work on for the pros. But for Indiana, it works because they are so efficient and they're so effective. That they don't beat themselves. It's a full credit to Chris Ignetti. And the discipline is another one. Like, Bama rolls out the fake punt, or it's not a fake punt, it's a fake QB sneak to try and draw him offside, where Ty Simpson is out there in the punt formation. And Signetti, we didn't have a camera on him the whole time. We didn't get it until after Bama calls the timeout, and you get that iconic little, I don't even know if you want to call it smirk, but just that face from Signetti. I would imagine if we had the camera on Kurt the entire, sequence there, those 30 seconds, he would look like that all 30 seconds. Normally a coach would
100%.
be yelling, Ty Simpson is in the huddle. Ty Simpson is in the huddle on a punt. Look out for a fake. Look out for a fake. And you can tell the Indiana defense is so disciplined that they see that. They recognize that immediately. And so they immediately know what Kalen DeBoer is trying to do. They don't even have to have Signetti yell at them, or the special teams corner yell at them, Simpson's on the field, Simpson's on the field. No, they just execute it right there. And so they get to save a timeout, which would, in a critical moment, in a critical game, would help them a ton. It is unbelievable coaching that Kurt Signetti has done in his 2 years in Indiana. He's done it everywhere. It is, again, I'll say I'm not the first person to say this, and it's not the first time I've said this, but he's going to make a lot of the new coaches' jobs so damn difficult, because to do this at Indiana in 2 years, can you imagine how, Lane Kiffin, the pressure on him is going to be in 2 years?
Yeah.
But even some of the guys that are coming up from the group of five, like you think of John Sumrall at Florida, you think of Coach Chesney going to UCLA, you think of the North Texas coach moving up to Oklahoma State. These coaches are going to have so much pressure on them because they have to somehow try to live up and have this kind of first season success, especially if their schools are going to commit the NIL that Indiana has. And Indiana's committed a boatload of it, and they've nailed these transfer portal classes back-to-back years. And you can't even use the phrasing of, well, we don't have the talent that Indiana has. Indiana, from a talent profile perspective, doesn't have the talent that Ohio State has or Oregon has. And so you can't even use that as a potential argument. And then the biggest one is you can't say, well, I'm not Coach Signetti. You can't expect that of me. Well, that's fine. I'll fire you and go find someone else that can be Coach Signetti.
Sure.
I feel so bad for these coaches going forward.
Yeah, because exactly as you said, it should be more like the Miami model, like we're patient.
Yeah.
And immediately when you were talking about that, I didn't say it because I don't agree with it, but
Or
you just be like,
or even
well,
the
look
Ole
what
Miss
Indiana
model.
did. Yeah,
Like,
correct.
as much as I hate to say it, the Ole Miss model, like I don't know off the top of my head, Kiffin has gone 6-6, 7-5 in his time. He's lost Egg Bowls, and now eventually he built this thing up, and he's not there anymore. But that's how he built it. It wasn't a. I mean, he was hired in what 2019, 2020, I think was his first year, right? Because did he start the same year as Leach or around then?
I
So
don't remember.
it's been
Yeah,
he was
2020 was his first year.
yeah. So
There you go.
20, 21, 22, yeah, 5 years, 6 years. He was there for a while, and it was a build it up, slow and steady kind of situation. So maybe there are enough. I think that what we'll see is I kind of talked about this, the difference between administration and fans for Texas A&M and Marcel Reed. I imagine that the difference will be that administration and athletic directors will recognize that this is an outlier and not a fair expectation, but fans won't, and so it'll be interesting to see how both sides navigate that. I said the same thing about Marcel Reed and Texas A&M. I think that the Texas A&M coaching staff will recognize that finding a perfect college quarterback is nearly impossible. You're not going to get perfect play from, except for the occasional like Joe Burrow that falls into your lap. But I think fans could become frustrated with interceptions or. All right, okay, Jack denies it, but that's my take there.
We've already had this conversation.
We have. I'm not gonna have it again. I just think we could find. I think that we're gonna see a potential similar situation where we have separation of administration and how they view something versus how fans view something.
When he wins the Heisman next year, there won't really be anything for us to complain about, right? So
Yeah.
I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. Shall we move on to the last game?
Yeah.
Sadly, it must be done.
Pain and suffering.
I ask. It's well known. I really dislike Georgia. I really dislike Kirby Smart. I don't like the program. I'm not a fan of Kirby Smart. They win a ton. I respect their winning, but I'm just like never gonna root for Georgia. Georgia Alabama plays. I'm rooting for Alabama. The only team I'm really not rooting for Georgia to beat Georgia is Texas normally, right?
Yeah.
Like even the regular season, I was rooting for Ole Miss to beat Georgia. I just really do not like Georgia. So the one time I asked Georgia to do something for me, I'm like rooting for Georgia. I need them to come through. And it's Georgia, right? When do they not really come through? Like they're in great shape. I think they've been playing fantastic football recently. That defense has really stepped up. The offense is humming. Gunnar Stockton has proven that he can win big games and he can handle the spotlight. And you do this to me?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? And so now I hate you even more, Georgia. Like I can't believe that you have done this. That this is what you do. That you lose this game, you're in control of the game, you find your way down 10, you fight your way back to tied, and then all of a sudden you don't have any safety help over the top on third and 7, third
Yeah.
and 5 late, and they beat you deep, so now they're in field goal range. You do that?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Crazy, man. It's despicable. I hate that we're here. Trinidad Chambliss was fantastic. He was phenomenal. He played an unreal game, 360-something passing yards. Kevin Lacey's really good. The Ole Miss defense did just enough. Much better performance than they had down in Athens earlier in the season. And they didn't have to be great, but they just had to do enough to let the Ole Miss offense take over and have a chance, and they did that. So shout out to them. Shout out to Ole Miss for getting the win. Really funny that as that's happening, Lane Kiffin is having to walk into an arena with Kim Mulkey. Like, that's the worst timeline
Did
for
they
him.
end up
I'm sure he
losing?
hates
They ended
that.
up losing.
They ended up losing. But Georgia, come on, man. Are you serious?
Yeah.
You're going to lose this game. Y'all's thoughts on this game, though, after my little
This is the game that I did not want to talk about. I did not want to talk about this game because I do not like Ole Miss. But Ole Miss played a really good game. We talked about it going into the game. JP predicted that Georgia would punt, and he was correct. They punted on 4 of their first 6 drives.
Celebrate our wins, right?
Yeah. Huge difference from their first matchup where they did not punt at all. They scored on every drive. If you take it, I take out the 13 seconds in the first half and then the kneel it out in the second half. I don't view those as drives. So I would say they scored on every drive of the first matchup. They do not do that this game. They punt twice to start. I was nervous. I was kind of trying to watch this game while also working our women's game yesterday, which shout out the women's game, women's basketball team. We dominated Auburn yesterday, a really good defensive team, but I'll talk about that more later. I should have brought that up earlier. But yeah, the Ole Miss defense plays way better than I was expecting. They put on a performance I was not expecting after the way they kind of got owned in the first matchup. It was in Athens. I will admit the first matchup was, so maybe there's some home field advantage there that allowed Georgia to kind of perform the way they did. But yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Trinidad Chambliss was out of his mind. Talk about guys who are raising their draft stock on the national stage. I've seen guys, a guy I respect, not just like Twitter burners, but like a PFF guy who said
Sure.
Chambliss is like QB3 for him, which, I mean, that's kind of ridiculous to think about where we were coming into the season where he was the backup to Austin Simmons, and now he's QB3 and a potential first-round draft pick. Just a really, really fantastic game from him. And yeah, the Georgia letting us down, I really don't know what to do with that. It kind of felt like the defense we saw for the first half of the season, where it was like not fantastic. It was not the Georgia defense we expected. They recorded 0 sacks.
Yep.
It was just kind of back to the first half of the season and not the same defense we saw down the second half of the season, which is what we really needed to see from this Ole Miss team who warmed up against Tulane, has a chip on their shoulder, with the Lane Kiffin situation and him leaving. Like, I think it's so clear now that like the players, it wasn't I mean, he lied with the players want me to come back and coach. Like, it's clear now that that's just not the case. Like, this team has a chip on their shoulder and they want to win, to kind of rub it in his face, and they did that. They did what he could not do earlier this season. Something that if they'd won that game, they would have been in the SEC championship. Like, this was a big win for Ole Miss to kind of stick it to Kiffin. And for it sucks for state fans because my thing with Ole Miss is I always wish for them to have success, just a little bit less success than we have. And right now we won 5 games, they won 11, so they're having a lot more success than we are, unfortunately. But for the rest of the nation, this is like the perfect outcome because if you don't care, if you don't dislike Ole Miss, this is hilarious. This is like This is like cinema for Lane Kiffin to leave a team that is now playing in the semifinals for the national championship. Like,
It's storybook.
it is better than you could have. Like, Hollywood could not write a story like this. And so for everyone else, for the 99% of college football fans, this is awesome and they're eating it up. And I recognize that, and so I can't be too upset because it is. I can see the irony that we're witnessing, but as a state fan, I still hate to see it. It just makes it feel like even more big brother, little brother, and I don't like feeling like that. I want us to have success like this, and it's jealousy, it's envy, it's all that it is. For our rivals to be experiencing this, but it was a great game by Chambliss and a great game by that defense to force punts. And then, a great job by Georgia to try and make it a game. The one thing I didn't like that stands out, I didn't like passing it on third down in the red zone. I get that they were going for the throat, going for the touchdown, but the way Trinidad Chambliss had been playing, giving them, 45 seconds to go and kick a game-winning field goal if you don't get it, just did not feel like a wise decision. Let's see, they got it at 50, they took 50 seconds. They got it with 56 seconds left. Just did not feel like a great decision. I would have rather they run that and then go into overtime, and try and kind of rally and get back on the same page. But instead, they pass it incomplete. Ole Miss goes down. They kick the game-winning field goal. Turns out being the game-winning field goal. But that was my one thought there. And JP, as our professional coach, semi-professional Madden player, what are your thoughts on that game management, the clock management at the end by Georgia there?
Well, it's such an impossible situation to manage. You can see the stress that was like going through Kirby Smart as it continued to pan to him as it got into those situations, because there is something to be said of, well, we do want to score a touchdown, because obviously that would mean they have to score a touchdown, assuming we make the extra point. But at the same time, we don't want to give, Trinidad, who had been Superman to that point that day, and who had been dicing us up all day, the ball with a minute 20 left in a timeout. And so we want to try to run down the clock and at least get their timeouts out of their pocket, and then take our chance on 3rd and goal. And we trust their offense to somehow how I execute in those spots. It is, I can tell you in the video game, it is really, really hard to manage. I can tell you firsthand, I've been in that situation, more times than I can count, where you have to try to manage such a situation. And because the computer, it, I would imagine Kirby felt the same way I do when I think of how the computer would play when they get the ball. And it's because they're a computer and they make the perfect decision, 90% of the time. There is so much fear in that giving them the ball back with any time left. You're going to give up points somehow. It's no different to how people manage the clock when they try to play against Patrick Mahomes. That's how good Trinidad had been playing that day. That's how good he had played through two games against Georgia. And so even Kirby Smart, who's won 2 national championships, and he's had plenty of situations like this. Even he tightens up in a situation like this, and maybe he makes a questionable decision, and his players, don't execute on a key play. I think it's just an impossible situation to manage. I thought they managed it the best they could. Obviously you wish you would have scored the touchdown, but at the same time, as Jack said in the opening for this one, it was more so the coverage on 3rd and 7 where they go 2-man to the boundary, meaning they go 2-man and double the tight end on the right side of the field and leave one-on-one press coverage on the left side of the field. And their DB just gets beat, and they get beat down the sideline. And look, Georgia's defense had really turned it on as of late, but maybe, the Trinidad Chambliss, it would appear, and Ole Miss just have their number and have had their number this year specifically. They haven't had their number in the past necessarily, except for, these past 2 years. They didn't tighten up, or Ty Simpson in Alabama didn't tighten up. They didn't allow the pass rush to be such a factor. I don't think Trinidad was sacked a single time through these 2 games by Georgia, because he scrambles so well out of the pocket and he throws so well on the run that's a threat. He uses his legs really, really well. His legs weren't used as much in this game as they were in that first game where he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. But, I said coming into this game, if Ole Miss is going to win it, Trinidad Chambliss is going to have to be Superman. And he damn sure was. He damn sure was. He was unbelievable in this game. And I, agree with you, Sanders, in that, being a State fan, you don't want to see it. But at the same time, I love watching some good football. And considering the 3 games that we had so far, and considering all of the games we'd had in the playoff, to see 2 teams just go right down the field against each other back and forth, and you have critical turnovers for both teams and critical moments. You have field goal drama. That was so much fun. That was so much fun to watch. Those are the kind of playoff games, everyone is hoping to get every single time. Sadly, it seems like this is, continues to be one of those outlier games as opposed to it feels like the game is instantly over in a lot of these games where it's just like, oh, they're just dominating this team. No, it was not that in this game. Ole Miss comes out front and wins that first quarter. Georgia is able to respond with scoring 21 points in second. But Peyton Woodring, misses a field goal. He's the most accurate kicker in Georgia's history, and he misses a field goal in this game. And that is like, only football can do something like that, where you have a stat, that's mentioned, it feels like every single time. But when you get in the playoffs and you get in these tight moments, even the best of kickers will miss, and they'll miss some key spots. They're never going to be perfect. Peyton Woodring misses in this game, and it ends up being, the deciding factor.
Sure.
But it didn't have at all in this critical moment. You can also say, on the other hand, the way Ole Miss managed in the first half, which could have been 3 more points to their advantage. So, what an incredible game. Mistakes made, mistakes capitalized on. I think the 2 quarterbacks you want to think of like the beginning of the season. Sanders mentioned it with Trinidad. He's the backup to Austin Simmons, but Gunnar Stockton as well. Both of these guys coming into the year were on nobody's radar. They were not thought of as, gold Stockton, and they weren't thought of as, oh, they're going to be Superman and heroes. And I think question once in the chat, and I think I could ask it, about 4 or 5 times.
JP, can you ask the question again? Because we're kind of losing you a little bit. We may have lost him temporarily. But yeah, fantastic game from Trinidad. And go ahead.
I was gonna, it definitely was just kind of the best game in general from a watchability standpoint and a gameplay standpoint, in my opinion.
I think that
I just wish the outcome was different.
Yeah, I think it's super close. I think the Miami game was a fantastic watch, even though it was low scoring. It was a different kind of game. I don't want to be, and I think that he said so. For the weekend, we had the 4 games. So I would agree that it was close. And then Oregon Texas Tech was a great first half, but it was definitely the closest and most entertaining as far as like if you want to see a lot of points scored, which we kind of expected 100%. Given how the first matchup went. Do we want to move on? We've got 3 NFL. Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah.
We could definitely move on.
Yeah, we've got 3 NFL games to take a look at. Initially, we were going to do the 3 win-in or the win-in games, which was Carolina, Tampa Bay, and then Baltimore, Pittsburgh. But we're also going to
the Carolina Tampa Bay game isn't winning in.
You're right. I forgot. There's one other game, and I think won't they know? Let's go. So that's the first game chronologically. So let's go ahead and start with that, and it's up, so you can take it away.
So they'll play. Carolina goes to Tampa Bay Saturday with essentially the division on the line for both teams. If Carolina wins, they're in. If Tampa Bay wins, they have to wait, and they are the biggest Saints fans ever. They have to hope that the Saints beat Atlanta at 12 on Sunday, and then they're in. Because if Atlanta wins, it forces a 3-way tie in the division, and then Carolina goes regardless of whether or not Tampa Bay beats them on Saturday.
Yep.
So technically not exactly winning in, but it's very close, and regardless, the stakes are crazy high in this game. It's 3:30 on Saturday. Tampa Bay is favored by 3, but Carolina won the first matchup in this series this year a couple weeks ago. And Tampa Bay really has not been playing good ball of late. So I'm curious to see what y'all's thoughts are about this game. We'll get into picking it in a couple minutes. It is the dynamics of this would be unbelievably disappointing for Tampa Bay to not make it, and there would have to be a lot of questions asked.
Yeah.
In terms of we started off the season so hot, but Baker's really not been that good down the stretch. The offense as a whole really hasn't been that good down the stretch. Like what changes need to be made? We just extended Todd Bowles, so he's kind of hard to get rid of. But it'd be a brutal disappointment for them not to make it, and kind of inexcusable for them not to make it. Whereas if Carolina doesn't make it, they feel like they missed an opportunity, but hey, we're kind of still building. So next year, sure, we just missed out. It sucks, but next year, I don't agree with this. But Bryce Young is going to lead us to great things. We just need a couple more pieces. And so the dichotomy of that is pretty interesting. It feels like Tampa Bay needs this one more than Carolina does.
Yeah, the Carolina next year argument, I don't see it all. That's something we've talked about a lot on this show is Bryce Young and his development and where he is. And they've won a lot of games this year. About as many games as I predicted them to win, actually. Did I have them going 7-10?
I don't remember, I'm going to be honest.
It's somewhere around there, and right now I think they're 8-8. So I was pretty close. But yeah, Tampa Bay does kind of need this. I also think maybe there's an argument for Tampa Bay, that next year could be like they could be a lot better next year, just because they were so good until they got plagued by injuries, losing starting running back, starting offensive lineman. They lost Abuka, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans, all missed large portions of this season. So I think that there's an argument to be made that has been impactful is the injuries. But there is the reality that Evans and Godwin will both be a year older, and neither of them is terribly young. So how much better do they try and bring in another wide receiver? Do they draft a wide receiver in the second or third round because they kind of hit on guys in the draft as far as wide receiver goes? But yeah, for this game, it is a huge matchup. It is kind of sad that it's not for the division because there will still be it'll be looming over Tampa Bay depending on how Sunday's result goes between Atlanta and New Orleans. Yep. But this matchup is huge. They started out the season super hot, 5-1, and they've now lost 7 of their last 8. I mean, it's just a ridiculous slide. At one point, JP, they were at the top of the pyramid. They were your number 1 power ranked team in the NFL. It is potentially the farthest we've seen a team fall, I feel like, or the greatest variance we've seen from a team as far as highs and lows go. I don't know where they were on last week's pyramid. We didn't do it on the live stream because it wasn't ready. But JP, do you know where they fell on last week's pyramid, or did you do one for this week or last week?
I've been off the pyramid.
They were sitting there at the bottom with Carolina.
Okay,
gotcha.
On the pyramid, but on the bottom.
So they fall in 5 or 6 levels of the pyramid.
They've fallen from tier 1 to tier 6.
Yeah. So that's
Unideal.
a huge, not at all what you want to see. But for the Panthers, you want to see a win. Like, you want to keep believing that Bryce Young is the guy, that the pieces you have in place, the young pieces you have in place, can have a good game against a Tampa Bay team that was really good earlier this season, is not now. Like, you just need, I think that's what Carolina Panther fans need to see is a win with the pieces they have in place over a Tampa Bay team that's not playing well right now, so that you can feel really good going into next year. You can make the playoffs. Because I'm of the opinion that, like, if you miss the playoffs barely, that's the worst case scenario. I'm almost of the opinion that I would rather be like 2-15 than make the playoffs as a 7 seed or a 6 seed. Just because we haven't seen a lot of success from 7 seeds. We've seen one win by a 7 seed since they started, since they expanded.
They'll be a 4 seed.
Thank you.
They'll be a 4 seed if they're in.
True, that is fair.
But I get what you're saying. Like, you're kind of in purgatory because you were like 1 game above 500. That typically doesn't bode well for future seasons.
Yeah.
But with a team as young, there's the scenario of like, well, we saw a lot of internal growth, and we think that growth can continue. I don't necessarily see it with this Panthers team, but like that's probably what they're telling themselves, and definitely what Panthers fans are telling themselves.
Yeah.
Like Bryce Young, he's got more in the tank. I can't wait to see year 2 of Ted McMillan. I'm a keeper league fantasy owner of Ted McMillan, so that is one thing I can't wait to see is the year 2 growth of Ted McMillan. But yeah, an interesting spot to be in. What are you looking for in this game, JP?
Well, I think to speak about Carolina positively, one of the things they have done this year is they have rebuilt a lot of joy and defending and talk and buzz and all of those in their team. 2 years ago, maybe even last year as well, I'm pretty sure there was a game where they were essentially giving out tickets for free because it was raining so much to come to their stadium and come to a game. I know tickets last year, there were games where it was $7 to get in. And because no one was going, you could just sit wherever the hell you wanted for $7. This year, to their credit, they have been really, really good home this year. And they have really built that buzz into their environment. And so I see it just like the Panthers fans see it as this is a tremendous opportunity to do a couple things. One of them is to get the home playoff game and to get to host potentially a team you've already beaten in the Los Angeles Rams, or to get a redemption chance against San Francisco or the Seattle Seahawks, who you were not competitive with to really any degree, but you get it at least in front of your home crowd, and you've played pretty well at home this year outside of 2 games when Tyler Shuck cooked you and last week when Seattle played really well. So there's an opportunity right there in getting a home playoff game. I feel no different as an NFC South fan for the New Orleans Saints, in that if the last 2 years with Derek Carr, my hope was let's just sneak in and get that first playoff game, and then we'll see what happens after that. Because I like us in our home building. They feel the same way, and they have built that fan base and that home field advantage, you might say, back up. The other one is Bryce Young has been pretty bad this year. For a number one overall pick, you revisit the trade with Caleb Williams. It has only gotten worse because Luther Burden has come on, and he was the last pick in that draft of those picks that were traded. Bryce Young, he's had terrible years statistically, just 2,500 yards. Tyler Shuck is almost to the same amount of passing yards as Bryce Young at this point. And he started, I want to say, definitely at least half the games, if not, more than half of the games, or less than half, I should say. So Bryce Young, he hasn't looked good statistically this year. But one thing he has done, he's been clutch, and they also haven't had, he still doesn't have the weapons that you really would hope for. They went and got Ted McMillan, and he's helped a ton. Ted's had a great season. So you want to see Bryce Young in the spot where he has never been in his NFL career, and that is he's playing with a lot on the line. He's playing with the division trip on the line, on the road, standalone game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How does he respond? Does he play well in that game? Some people could still defend Bryson saying, oh, he's still young. He's gone through multiple head coaches, multiple offensive coordinators. Not that fan base, but the franchise has been really, really toxic and poor. It almost like the New York Jets, with Sam Darnold. You don't put so much on Sam Darnold, but he was a Jets quarterback, so his career was kind of ruined at the beginning. Could you make the same argument for Bryce, and maybe you're building in the same direction? Well, he gets an opportunity to do that on Saturday. So I look at those two things as two of the things I'm looking for of, how much does Carolina relish in the fact that the division's on the line? And then how much does Bryce Young respond to that? Does he have a Bryce Young game where he throws for less than 200 yards? Or does he have a really good game against a, Tampa Bay defense that's not been good as of late? That's why they've fallen down the pyramid, is their defense has really fallen, and Baker Mayfield hasn't played well. Quinn Ewers cooked them last week in Miami.
Yeah.
There's really no excuse that Bryce can't do the same, because Quinn wasn't playing with Tyreek Hill. He had Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle. That's no different than Panthers fans would argue with having Rico Dowdle and Ted McMillan. So there's really no excuse for Bryce Young to not have a good day. Will he? No, because he's shown throughout his career that he won't have those elite days passing the football. But it's a huge test for them. On the Tampa Bay side, I felt like with that first game, it really didn't matter what happened, because them to go and then beat, whether it was Tua or Quinn Ewers the following week, but they weren't able to do it. You don't have your fate in your hands, and it's really disappointing to see where this year has gone. Already looking towards the offseason, Sanders was talking about with the receivers and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You could argue them not being healthy this year has hindered Tampa Bay, but they've never been really healthy receivers. Mike Evans had a good, healthy 5 years or so to start his career, but after that, he's dealt with injuries. He's dealt with soft tissue injuries. Chris Godwin himself has dealt with catastrophic injuries for the most part, dislocating his foot. And if I'm not mistaken, he has a torn ACL in his career as well.
Yep.
So they've dealt with injuries their entire career. So I don't know if that's necessarily an answer. If I do point to anything, though, it is injury-wise, and it's been their offensive line. They've been banged up all year. And remember when we were talking about them when they were on top of the pyramid, they were doing the things they were doing with second string, third string offensive linemen. And Baker was still cooking and having great days, and Emeka Buka was playing phenomenal. They haven't done that, and I think that's caught up to them. And so maybe that's something you look at in the offseason, drafting an offensive lineman, another one. Is Baker started 2 years on the same.
We lost you again, JP. So I'll just drafting offensive linemen is always big.
Phil,
Oh, go ahead.
He's back. He's back. He's back. Maybe.
yeah, go ahead. No, you can go ahead. I'm pretty much at the end of my thought there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get the offseason talks for Tampa Bay started too early because they are still
Well,
in
draft prep starts Monday.
for what draft prep starts Monday.
Yeah.
Draft prep. Schubert can't talk. Yeah, that was news to me when JP said that earlier. I didn't know we were starting our draft prep.
Got to lock in.
But I'm always down for draft
I will be.
conversation. Hey, I'm down for that. I'm down to get on that, and get looking into some potential needs and stuff like that. But yeah, a huge game, and the offseason is still to come, so we don't have to talk more about that. But I'll be interested to see how this game plays out. I will be rooting for Tampa Bay. Big Emeka Egbuka fan. I drafted him in a keeper league, and so hoping for year 2. It looks a lot more like the first 6 weeks, and nothing like the last 12 weeks.
Sure.
So that's got my fingers crossed for that. But yeah, I will be rooting for as in to stand with JP. And the crap that he's gotten from Panthers fans, I kind of have to root against the Panthers at this point.
Go Bucks.
Yeah, go Bucks.
Talk about rooting for them. Let's go ahead and pick this game.
Oh yeah, I forgot we have to pick because previewing and all that. Let me pull up to see who is in the lead.
Y'all are tied currently, so I don't know who
It
had it.
should
Tied, so
still
it's
be
still
JP.
me.
We've also forgot to mention this last week, but I believe that you deserve a little bit of a shout out, Jack. With what did you do last week?
Well, I picked Houston, and y'all both went Chargers.
Oh, okay. I didn't shout you out last week because you weren't here or I forgot. But the week before was your first 3-0 week of the season. And
Yep.
potentially, no, not your first week with more than one win. You've had a 2-win week before. But yeah, so just a quick shout out for your week 16 picks. Really unfortunate for you that it came in the same week that me and JP both went 2-1. So you made up basically no
all good.
ground.
I can't take too much credit anyway. That's the pyramid's handiwork, or the totem pole's handiwork right there.
Hey, it worked for you last week as well. Last week, me and JP both go 0-3. You go 1-2. So, big. You make up some ground there. But yeah, we can get into picking this game. It is Tampa Bay favored by 3. JP, you will start as we are tied, and you are the last person to have the lead. So go make your pick.
I'm gonna take Tampa Bay or -3. That's about where the pyramid, if there was a pyramid this week, would have the spread. I think these two teams are really on an even level at this point in the year, which, again, we've said a lot of, oh, it's shocking throughout this segment, but it is kind of shocking for me to see a team in Carolina who's been off the pyramid multiple weeks. I don't think they got close to graveyard watch, but they were off the pyramid multiple weeks, and Tampa Bay was on top of it. And here they are for, I think it's now 3 weeks or 4 weeks in a row, they are on the same tier. So shocking that we've gotten this far. But I trust Tampa Bay because, let me rephrase, I don't trust Bryce Young
There it is.
enough to pick him in a critical moment in a standalone game on the road. Which sucks to say because I fully trusted him when he was in college in those kinds of moments, and he delivered in a ton of them. So tough that it has changed throughout his NFL career, but give me Tampa Bay -3.
You can correct me if I'm wrong about this. It's your pyramid, but I believe the Panthers were 1-3. They lost to the Jaguars. They lost to the Cardinals. They beat the Falcons 30-0, but that was a weird game, and they got dominated by the Patriots. And I think going into the week versus the Dolphins, who were also very bad, had maybe 1-3 at the time. You said that whoever loses that game will be on graveyard watch. So I guess they weren't on graveyard watch, but they were on graveyard watch.
Yeah.
So they were one step removed from the graveyard watch and 2 steps removed from the graveyard. And now here they are, winning your in situation. But I'll also be going Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield. I mean, I like the Bucks, dude, and I'm not a big Panthers fan. And like I said, I often my picks rely on fandom, and right now I'm a fan of the Buccaneers more than I am the Panthers.
Sure.
Hey, look where it's got me so far. I'm in first place in the college pick'em and tied for first sitting. Like I'm not if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Hey, bro,
So
don't fix it. Sure.
I will be going with my fandom pick here and going Buccaneers over the Panthers.
I'll be rounding out the clean sweep too. It's not been a pretty end to the season for Tampa Bay, but I just don't see the Panthers beating them twice in the same season. And you got to go to Tampa Bay as well. So give me the Bucks to pull it out and cover the 3. With that, we can move on to the other Saturday game. This is not a win and you're in game, but it is a battle for the 1 seed as Seattle takes the trip down the West Coast to play in San Francisco against the 49ers. 7 p.m. kickoff Saturday night. Seattle is favored by 1.5. Y'all's thoughts on this game? What do y'all expect? Key things to look at.
The first thing is Sam Darnold, right? Sam Darnold was in this exact situation like 365 days ago. Minnesota versus Detroit, 1 seed on the line, NFC North on the line. Darnold was having an incredible season, and he was, people thought that he had been fixed by Kevin O'Connor, right? That's the head coach in Minnesota. I think I called him Kevin O'Donnell or something last week, but Kevin O'Connor fixes Sam Darnold. O'Connell. Thank you. Maybe I called him O'Connor. Anyway, Kevin O'Connell, that's what his name is. Had fixed Sam Darnold, and then they go into that game, and he just kind of drops an egg, and then drops an egg in the playoffs. And now this year, I feel like we're kind of having the same conversation. Darnold's having a good year. JSN, it's easy to have a good year when you're playing with one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba is having a fantastic season. But now we're right back in the same situation. 1 seed is on the line. And, it's on the road, which is a little, stressful. Ideally, you want that to be a home game. But you go to San Francisco, who is having an absurd season. I mean, it's ridiculous that San Francisco finds himself in the situation they're in now, playing for the 1 seed. After the way their season has gone injury-wise, losing Nick Bosa, losing Fred Warner, it's wild play from them. But Christian McCaffrey, as JP said, has been sacrificing guys left and right so that he can stay healthy, and it's working. So it's kind of really hard to argue with that because he is staying healthy and they are winning games. But that's the big thing I'll be watching for. Sam Darnold. How does he play in this kind of high-pressure situation? Does he put up another bad game, or do we see him play his really good game? How does JSN play? How does that duo look? I think will be the big thing I'm watching. And then also the Seahawks defense. JP has been on the Seahawks defense for like 10 weeks at this point about how good they are. How does Brock Purdy and the system quarterback that he is, or as some people would call him, how does he look against that's what I'll be watching, is like quarterback play against these two really, really good defenses.
It's massive here. It simply is. Obviously, likely, whichever QB plays better against the 1 seed, but narrative-wise, this is big for both of their career. And Brock Purdy's played really good ball down the stretch. We've been pretty critical of the contract he was given and his play earlier in the season, and that those two things didn't really match up. But, I mean, he's made some big-time plays. He was phenomenal last week. So it's kind of another chance for him to be like, hey, look, when I don't necessarily have all those weapons, when there's injuries all around me, I can still lead this team to a really good regular season and to a high seed in the playoffs. And then obviously you already talked about all the Sam Darnold stuff. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, since he's come back from injury, he's had 16 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. The last 3 weeks, he's thrown for 295 or more yards in all 3 games. So that was against the Titans, one of those games. But he also played at Indianapolis and against Chicago. So he has been playing really, really well these past few weeks. JP, what are you looking for in this game?
Well, my first one was what you said, Sanders. I fully agree there. That's like the biggest narrative piece to this game is Sam Darnold and how does he respond to the situation he was in last year. You can't, when you go through hardship in life, as specifically sports wise, and you're put in that tough moment, all you ever really hope for is that you get another chance to be in a similar opportunity, that you get a chance to avenge your downfall. You get a chance to, come back and have another shot at it. When I was trying to break 80 in golf, over a 3-week stretch, I shot 83 times until I
Oof.
shot a 79. And on all 3 of those times that I shot 80, I had a putt on 18 to shoot 79, and I missed it all 3 times. And when that happened and I went through that pain, all I ever hoped for was, man, I hope I get to have this opportunity again.
Sure.
And I get to finally, capitalize on it. Now, 4th time was the charm for me. Obviously, Sam Darnold hopes it's 2nd time's the charm. So since Sanders had that, I'll go a different route. I look at the first game of this series, and that was the first week of the year, with San Francisco going to Seattle in a 17-13 contest. San Francisco was fully healthy essentially at the time. George Kittle didn't play in that game though. He was on IR, so Jake Tonges had his first touchdown of many this year in games without
Shout out Jake Tonges.
George Kittle. Shout out Jake Tonges for sure. Brock Purdy threw for 277. They only scored 17 points. CMC was really, really good. He had 93 receiving yards in that game. And what it ended up coming down to was 2 drives at the end of the game. And the 2 drives, one, San Francisco's driving, Brock Purdy's leading them down the field, and he throws a floater to the right corner of the end zone, and Tariq Woolen, for whatever reason, doesn't, play the ball perfectly. It goes through his hands essentially, and it lands in Jake Tonges' lap, and it's a touchdown, and San Francisco takes the lead. Sam Darnold's able to lead a drive right back down the field, but he gets his right tackle, Abraham Lucas, pushed into his lap by Nick Bosa, fumbles the football on the goal line, and Seattle loses. San Francisco doesn't have those defensive weapons anymore. Fred Warner's not going to play in this game, although he hopes to maybe return at some point in the postseason. Nick Bosa, of course, isn't playing this game. Their first-round pick, Michael Williams, won't play in this game. And you got numerous other injuries across that defensive, team. So how does Sam Darnold potentially feast on that? Because what has San Francisco done really over the past 3 weeks defensively? They've given up a ton of points to a ton of teams. I mean, Caleb Williams had a phenomenal day last week. Even Phillip Rivers was having a really good day on Monday Night Football against San Francisco. So can Sam Darnold, take advantage of that? Because they've had some slow offensive halves and then really hot second halves a lot of this year. Most notably, the last 3 games at Atlanta, they were tied at halftime. They blow them out the second half. The Rams game, they're behind. They come back. And then last week with Carolina, they're kind of playing with their food is what I would say personally. And then they turn it around in the latter part of that game. The slow start, though, I don't think they can take that, because as good as Seattle's defense is, and it is elite, they're going to play with a ton of, chip on their shoulder and a ton of, intensity, wanting to turn around and not allow Brock Purdy to cook them. But I do think Brock Purdy and that offense gets what they want in this game. So I do think this is a shootout. Like, I really think this is a game that is in the 30s being scored on both sides. I think it's going to come down to, can Sam Darnold outduel Brock Purdy? They're kind of viewed on very similar statures when it comes to a talent perspective. Purdy's a little bit more mobile with his legs, but Sam Darnold has a little bit of a stronger arm and can throw it around the field. They got the same kinds of weapons. JSN is unlike any other person on the field, and CMC is like any other person on the field. So I think this comes down to the 2 offenses, which in turn part comes down to the 2 quarterbacks. I think this is a quarterback battle. Who has the best day? I expect, gunslinging, guns blazing. San Francisco is going to be rocking. It's a Saturday night kickoff. They're going to be wearing those black jerseys, which personally I don't like. They look kind of stupid.
Fair.
Obviously not as cool as the Mississippi State black jerseys that we're going to be debuting tonight, or at least the black helmet, I should say. But it's going to be rocking in San Francisco. And, I talked about this, I think, with just Sanders in our last NFL show. San Francisco has an opportunity to do something that no one has ever done, and that is never have to leave San Francisco en route to a Super Bowl championship. They
Yeah.
win, they're the 1 seed, they play 2 games at home. Technically they host the Super Bowl because it's in San Francisco. You know, the Rams and the Buccaneers both played at home on the the other side of the COVID year, in fact, in back-to-back years. But both of those teams had to go on the road at least once in that their path to the Super Bowl. San Francisco has that opportunity to play at home and stay in the Bay Area and never leave the Bay Area because they played their last week here in San Francisco and this final week of the season. They'll have played, that'll be 6 straight weeks in San Francisco, 7 straight weeks in San Francisco. What a unique opportunity that is for them. They got to take advantage of that. But I expect a shootout. I won't say that I'll guarantee a shootout because these defenses can turn it on.
They definitely can. Yeah.
But I expect a shootout. I expect quarterback play to dictate the story.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're kind of all on the same page on that. So I think we go ahead and pick this game.
Let's do it.
Seattle's favored by 1.5 on the road. JP, who are you taking to win this game?
Oh wow, Seattle's favored. I haven't looked at the spread, so I had no clue.
Should have made
Favored
you
by
guess
1.5.
then. That's your favorite game to play with us.
Yeah,
We missed
Well,
our chance. We missed our
make
opportunity.
me. I guess
We'll
make
guess-
me do that on the Baltimore Pittsburgh.
We will.
Okay, that kind of surprises me because I was expecting San Francisco to be favored. I would have taken Seattle plus the points really easily. I'll take Seattle though -1.5. Seattle's on top of my pyramid, and they still would have been this week had I done another pyramid. San Francisco continues to rise, but they're not quite, up to the level of Seattle.
Sure.
Even if they had snuck into tier 3 somehow this week, I would still have Seattle favored in this game. So I'm gonna take Seattle -1.5. And yeah, that's surprising. I fully would have expected San Francisco.
I will
What do we got,
also
Sanders?
I will also go Seattle. I just think that the dynamic weapon in JSN and Sam Darnold, they've been playing well all season. And this year is the year that I'm going to bet on Sam Darnold finishing it out and not collapsing down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm taking Seattle as well. I think both these offenses are playing really well, and I don't necessarily disagree to expect a shootout, JP. But I think if a defense is gonna have something to say about that, I trust Seattle's defense to do that more than the 49ers. So the 49ers kind of probably feel like their defense has been disrespected all year, given the injuries, and they continue to perform, so they could shut me up yet again. But I'll take Seattle to cover. All right, last game, and I think this game is the biggest of kind of all the games with high stakes left, and I think the NFL agrees it's the Sunday night football game, and I think it's the biggest just because of the narrative and the kind of history of these teams. These feel like two teams that really hate each other, unlike Tampa Bay and the Panthers. I mean, they're division foes. I'm sure they really don't like each other either. But just the history of this one really gets to me, and Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the Ravens are at Pittsburgh. JP, what do you think the spread is?
If I had to guess, I would assume Baltimore's favored, and I'd say they're favored by 3.
Very close. They're favored by 3.5. So essentially, you were right. You were right on it. Lamar Jackson has been fully practicing. He's expected to play. Should be a huge boost to that Ravens offense. So last week they didn't need him because it was the Derrick Henry show. And for me, kind of what I'm looking at least narrative-wise, is we're looking at an unbelievably disappointing season for the Ravens. This would kind of, to me, be an all-time disappointing season in terms of you didn't even make the playoffs. Kind of maybe akin to the Lions in the NFC to not make the playoffs this year, like a stunner. I get Lamar was hurt. Still no reason for it, though. You got to find a way to make the playoffs. You lost a lot of games with Lamar, too. So the Ravens kind of salvage their season, keep everyone on board. I feel like if they lose this, we're looking at potential coaching changes. There's been some reports about Lamar Jackson maybe wanting out, or Lamar Jackson basically being like, it's either the coach or me. I don't know how true those are, but there's at least rumblings of that. And then for the Steelers, they actually have nothing on the table because they've accomplished their biggest goal.
Yeah.
They've hit the above 500 mark. And so, they probably don't even care if they make the playoffs. They may just want to go home early. They may just be chilling. But no, I mean, for the Steelers, you kind of feel like you had the playoffs locked up, and then you go lose to the Browns. And I know that's not the easiest place to play, but you really feel like you missed one there. And so then to lose that one, and then you potentially lose to the Ravens, it would feel like you let the playoff spot in the division slip out of your grasp, that you had it at one point and you lost it. And that would be really disappointing as well for them, obviously. But what are y'all looking for in this game?
I will be watching Pittsburgh's offense, right? I mean, they lose DK Metcalf due to a poor decision on his part to attack a fan or what. He had a situation with a fan. I don't know exactly what went down or what was said, but last week against Cleveland, Rodgers throws for under 200 yards, and their leading receiver was Pat Freiermuth. And this has kind of been the way their offense has been all season. It's been led by, I think, 3 tight ends, Washington, Freiermuth, and a third one who I can't think of off the top of my head. But
Connor Hayward.
Thank you. So they've been running a lot of 2 and 3 tight end options and sets, but it's not a great offense. And now you lose your number 1 wide receiver, which was kind of the only true good wide receiver you had. You've had weeks where your running back is your leading wide receiver, your leading pass catcher. So I'll just be watching that. How does Aaron Rodgers play? And I think that the Browns defense is better than the Ravens defense. I think the Browns defense is fantastic. But how does Aaron Rodgers play against this Ravens defense? Who steps up? Does anyone step up? Because it's really crazy how far it feels like Pittsburgh has fallen. I feel like that for years they were a team that always hit on their 3rd through 5th round wide receivers. They got guys like Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Antonio Brown. I think was a later round pick. They just always seem to be hitting on guys late in the draft, and they just never had to invest value picks in them. So who steps up? Does anyone in that roster step up for a big matchup for the Steelers?
Sure. What do you got, JP?
I think it's very easy to do a couple things and just make assumptions. And that is, you go look at the last game that the Ravens played, and you see, Derrick Henry has that career day. Harbaugh is talking about in the post-game press conference that he thinks it's one of the best performances by a running back all time, which is just laughable to say because you've been failing to give him the ball all season.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, well, all right, in this game, the Ravens are just going to give Derrick Henry the ball a ton and dominate this game. And they very well could. But in the last game, Henry carried it 25 times for 94 yards, just 3.8 per carry, and a long of 19 yards. On the other hand, TJ Watt won't play in this game like he played in that last game. I think the biggest part of the story is one that Sanders mentioned, and that is how in the last game, DK Metcalf went 7 catches for 148 on 12 targets, 21 yards per reception, which is really long for Pittsburgh standards so far this year. And they were hitting deep shots down the field to DK. Him and A-Rod were. A-Rod went for 284 through the air, and he didn't have DK. Again, like you said, that I really, really hate when athletes, professional athletes, when they've been given this God-given ability and they have been given this unbelievable opportunity for their families, for their lives, and then you go and waste it making stupid decisions like this.
Yeah.
And look, DK is not going to lose a single dollar, not that much at least, for the altercation with the fan. But my goodness, he's going to lose the Pittsburgh Steelers the season because they need him in this game. They need DK Metcalf in this game with the way he dominated the Ravens last time. And with them not having them, I really am fearful for Aaron Rodgers and how that career is going to go out in Pittsburgh.
Sure.
I think with these two teams, I think Jack touched on it well with the history with these two teams. Seattle and San Francisco, I would argue, deserved to be that Sunday night football game. But this game is a fine, replacement for it. And I do think maybe we're looking at a game where, coaching the two coaches might be coaching their final game for these franchises. I would be more surprised if Mike Tomlin was fired, but I don't think I'd be too upset with it if they were to lose this game. I would not be surprised if Harbaugh is fired if they lose this game, and I think that's a very likely scenario. I think we're looking at the last time that these two coaches would coach against each other, maybe, and so there's so much on the line there and so much at stake. Pittsburgh and the Yinzers and the terrible towel. I think it's going to be rocking there at what should be known as Heinz Field and not Acrisure Field or Stadium, I think is what they're calling it now. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a spectacle to watch. Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth on the call. It makes a ton of sense. NBC, it feels like every single year they do one of these games and they do such a good job with them. So I can't wait. It's going to be a great cap to this year. I hope it's not the cap to Aaron Rodgers' career, that he pulls something out of his pocket, gets at least one more playoff game and one more chance to play another game before he retires off into the sunset. If they're going to do that, if Pittsburgh's going to win this game, and, I talked about them needing DK, it's going to have to be, really reliant on big time plays from guys that aren't in their prime anymore. Adam Thielen's going to have a good day. Marcus Valdez-Scantling's going to have a good day. I think Pat Freiermuth is going to have to be a huge X factor. You got to somehow find some run game, which this year, Pittsburgh struggled with a ton. And that's even with taking the Iowa running back. I think they took him in the second round, Caleb Johnson, and he hasn't had that great year. Jalen Warren is more of a pass catching back. Kenneth Gainwell, I'd argue, is a receiver that plays running back. So you're going to just have to find some plays from those kinds of guys somehow in this game. And you're going to have to find a bunch of them. I'm pretty sure Darnell Washington isn't playing in this game.
Did he break his arm or something?
Yeah, he broke his arm last week against Cleveland. So you lose one of your tight end threats and arguably probably your best tight end threat with how big and physical he is. You also, you don't have TJ Watt in this game. So, you need a Pittsburgh crowd to really give the edge towards your Pittsburgh defense.
Yeah.
I think if we're looking at this game and Pittsburgh has won it, someone has had some kind of game that you weren't ready for. And that may be Kenneth Gainwell having another one of those games, or it's Adam Thielen, or it is Jalen Warren. And then I also think still you're going to need Lamar to play into your hands a little bit. I think you got to shut down Derrick Henry, and Lamar's going to have a turnover here and there. Lamar's going to have a bad moment here and there. So I said at the onset for this, like, Baltimore favored by 3. I think there's so many more scenarios where Baltimore wins this game. And again, speaking to Jack, what you said was disappointing. If they lose this game, holy crud, dude. Holy crud. What a disappointment of a season it would be. What a disappointing cap to it. Like, it's even worse to have had the start that you had and Lamar got hurt and you were 2-7 at one point, and then to bring it all the way back and you got your one game and you got your chance. Cleveland did the job for you and you still couldn't get it done. I cannot even imagine the discourse going on in that franchise going forward. And you look at the AFC North next year. What a season we may be in for in the AFC North next year. Is Joe Burrow and the Bengals the favorite right off the bat? I don't know. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting. So there's a ton of pressure on Baltimore. I say all that to say that there is a ton of pressure on Baltimore in this game. I don't think the pressure is on Pittsburgh. And so
you're right.
They got to manage it.
With the way you laid things out, like the odds are stacked in Baltimore's favor to win this game. They have a lot more things going for them in terms of personnel, matchups, etc. So you cannot lose this one. With that being said, let's pick this game. Baltimore's favored by 3.5. Take us away, JP.
Yeah, like I said, I think there's a lot more avenues for Baltimore to win this game than there is for
Sure.
Pittsburgh. But I also said it was either 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whenever they last played right before it, when we previewed it, whoever won that game was going to win the division. I'm going to stick to that. And so give me Pittsburgh +3. Give me Aaron Rodgers, my guy, our guy, to get it done and have a home playoff game there in Pittsburgh. And Lamar to have ended Harbaugh's tenure with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. Sanders?
I'm going to go Baltimore. I just have zero like in a Pittsburgh offense that struggled all season or not been fantastic. With the only one real pass catcher in DK Metcalf and now losing him, I just don't see that panning out and then being able to score enough points.
Sure. Hey. I'm gonna take Pittsburgh to cover. And I really hope they win. I'm glad you corrected to our guy JP because Aaron Rodgers is my favorite NFL quarterback of all time, and so I kind of just need this one for him, and I need this one for me. Because it would just be very sad for him to go out this way. So give me Pittsburgh to kind of figure it out. And honestly, I'm going to say give me Pittsburgh to cover, but it probably will really be Baltimore doing what they've done at times this season and kind of giving games away, throwing games away, just not playing up to their standard to be the reason that Pittsburgh pulls this one off, at least in terms of covering.
Who did JP go?
Pittsburgh's really didn't have the juice. He went Pittsburgh.
All right.
So you're out on an island there.
Is this where I take the lead? Probably not.
It could be. It could be. With that being said, let's transition to our last segment of the podcast.
I actually had a couple of things I wanted to talk about after that, just like short things.
Yeah.
But after we can do that after best bets.
Sure.
Go ahead, JP.
Okay.
All right. Hold up. You came in a little.
Restart it.
Yeah, you came in a little robotic.
Staticky.
So now hopefully you got a better signal and try that again.
So last week we won 1-3. Sadly, we made a poor decision to add a best bet right before the Sunday slate. I don't have to mention that game. But in that game, one quarterback threw 5 touchdowns and dominated, and we picked the other team to cover. But we went 1-3 last week, which means we are now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me. I'm pretty sure it's 34, 38-1. So we got to, capitalize on this week and then the playoffs to get above 500 on the year. I got 3 of them this week. And that's because there's not a lot of games to pick from because of a lot of people sitting out. There's no pyramid or totem pole this week because, the Chargers are resting. The Packers are resting. The Eagles are going to be resting. It sucks that is kind of the case of it, but it makes total sense for all those teams. They pretty much know where they're going to be, and they would rather take the week to get healthy and be ready for the postseason than play this week. So we got 3 games. My first one is I'm going to take Seattle -1.5. My pyramid would have that at Seattle -2 right now. So just a slight advantage and lean towards Seattle just from a point. But again, like I said, there's not a lot of games to pick from this week with everybody resting. My other one, and this is I would say the best of them, I like Chicago -3 against the Detroit Lions. I have Chicago -6.5 with the pyramid. Of course, Detroit destroyed Chicago the first time, 52-21. But Detroit's season is pretty much over, and Chicago is playing for the 2 seed. Essentially, I think Ben Johnson and that team are going to play with so much fire because not only is he the former offensive coordinator for that team, but that team boat raced them earlier in the year. And now you come off a kind of a devastating loss where you lose on the goal line to San Francisco. I just think they're going to play with their, the hair on fire. A keynote and a key stat to watch out for this game. And Ben Johnson was asked about this week. And, personally, I hated his answer. But he was asked about Caleb Williams and the quest for 4,000 passing yards, which if you don't know, no Chicago Bears quarterback has ever thrown for 4,000 passing yards in a single season. And yes, the season is in a game longer, but I do think it would still hold in really high regard for Chicago because, they've never had one for one, but two, with the way the kickoff has changed the past 2 years, you're having a lot shorter fields more often. And so technically there's less passing yards to go around. So I still think it's a phenomenal accomplishment if Caleb does it. He needs 270 yards against Detroit. Ben Johnson talked about, and he was asked about it, and he answered that he doesn't think they're going to try to go for it because all they care about is winning this game. And so they're going to do whatever they can to win this game. I don't believe it. I honestly don't believe it. I think he's lying. I think they will go for it. And with Philly resting their starters, it's not necessarily the same amount of risk because Philly's the only team that can be the 2 seed besides Chicago. So I think Caleb gets the 4,000 passing yards, which is awesome. And that would be so, you're so happy for Chicago. They can finally get that monkey off their back. And I think Chicago covers the 3 and they don't dominate, Detroit to the same degree that Detroit dominated them in the first one. But I do think they get it done and cover 3 points pretty easily. And my final best bet comes from the game we just previewed, and that is Ravens, Steelers. And we had that spread at 3.5, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I'm taking Pittsburgh plus 3.5. I have these two teams on the same tier in the pyramid, which means I get to again do the thing that models love to do of we think the wrong team is favored here at the pyramid. We think Pittsburgh should be a 2.5-point favorite with the home field advantage. We view these teams on a very similar stature. So give me Pittsburgh plus 3.5 as my final best bet.
Yep.
A 3-0 week would have us one game off of 500. And I can't wait. We also can't wait for the postseason because, at least for me, the reason I built the pyramid was so that I would be able to pick the playoffs well. And,
Sure.
we hope for a good playoff run and a good playoff run for the totem pole as well.
Of course.
We didn't have those 2 segments, but I can tell you not great weeks from both the totem pole and the pyramid. Totem pole was 500 and the pyramid was 1 game above 500. So a tough week, and not a big losing week. So when your tough week is 500, you take it.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Considering how goofy the week of the NFL was, especially like going 500, I'll live. But I hope the best bet segment closes out the regular season strong. I'd take 3-0. I like your picks, JP. Before we get out of here, Sanders, what do you?
Oh, well, so there were 2 things I want to talk about. First, we kind of referenced it earlier, was so I'm a women's basketball fan. I watch a lot of women's basketball.
Sure.
Lane Kiffin was at the LSU game last night, and they lost. And I wanted to oh, hold up. I forgot what the word is. Oh, nominate. That's the word. I'm so dumb. Anyway, I want to nominate a Cock of the Walk for the week because I was watching this game with my younger brother. I know Cock of the Walk is your thing, but we're getting into basketball season, and I was like, this is a good one to start with. My younger brother's a Kentucky fan. I watched the last 5 minutes of that game with him after the state game finished. We were watching in the car. They hit a buzzer. They hit a game winner at the buzzer, and it was a 3 from a girl who shoots less than 2 threes a game. She shoots 1.7 3-pointers a game, but she hits 1.8 per game, 40% when she does shoot. So it was a wild ending. I don't think she passed it. I think she dribbled it around for 24 seconds and then just stepped back, swish,
Heaved it.
and Harris screamed. And I was watching on my phone like a half a second behind him. So as it left her hands, I already knew it was good, and I was just like, this is electric. So shout out the my nomination for Cock of the Walk for this week, going into number 5 LSU and hitting a buzzer beater when the three is not your shot. That was really cool. And then the other thing I want to talk about is our women's basketball team. Just real quick, because we've got a huge game on Thursday, and I just wanted to kind of shout out some of our players and kind of get ready for that game
Sure.
for like
Sure.
a couple minutes. We're now 14-1, I believe. 1-0 in SEC play. SEC play started yesterday for women's basketball, and we got a huge win against Auburn. Auburn was a very defensive team, kind of a team that was going to force you to turnovers. They ended up getting a lot of points off turnovers, but our ability to shoot got us the win. We ended up winning 75-53. So a huge win against a first-year head coach, and we ended up facing a former state player who transferred there. So yeah, just a great win. Huge showing by Triana Crisp, 17 points. As always, Favor Nwodozie and Madison Francis balled. Nwodozie led the team in rebounds, I believe, with tied for the lead in rebounds with 13, and Francis also had 13. So it was just like, it's very exciting. We've got a gauntlet ahead of us. We have to play Tennessee at home. Excuse me, we play Oklahoma Sunday, I believe. Tennessee next Thursday.
Yeah.
Ole Miss after that. All three of those teams are ranked in the top 25, and two of them are on the road. So big stuff for the women's basketball team.
Well,
I think.
the gauntlet extends because then you get Vandy at home, who's ranked 12, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Kentucky at home, who's ranked 11.
Yes, it does. So it is going to be tough. I'm of the opinion, and I've talked about this, I think this is the best team that Purcell has had. Watching them play, this is year 4 for him, and this is a really, really good team. This is the kind of team that I think it's young enough and talented enough. If you keep Francis, Lampley, Nwodozie, King, I think that this is a team that could be in the hosting conversation next season. But I think this is a team that could be a 6 seed or an 8 seed this season. So I can't wait for students to get back. I work every game, all the home games, and it's, the fans show up, but it's not the same as having students there. I really hope that they buy in like they did in the mid and late Schaefer years. We would pack out for a top 25 matchup. So I'm excited to see how the rest of the season goes and how SEC play goes. But starting 1-0 is huge. We needed that, and it's a big win. It's only our second Power 4 win of the season. We had a pretty light out-of-conference schedule. But yeah, I'm excited. We've only got one loss. It was to Texas Tech, who is undefeated. They're in the top 25, so not sure how good that Texas Tech team is right now, but we'll find out more as they get into Big 12 play. But this is a good team. They're a lot of fun to watch. They can shoot. Madison Francis can dunk. She's had, I believe, 3 attempts, and she has technically dunked one of them, but it was one that kind of she went up.
It was a dunk.
It went off the front iron, slipped out of her hand, and just kind of rolled in. But we're gonna call it a dunk. I don't know if we're gonna see any more attempts just because of the SEC play. Those fast breaks and just open attempts are gonna be few and far between. You got to take points when you can, but
Yeah.
they can shoot. Francis and Nwodozie and Lampley are 3 very, very athletic and fun players to watch. They can get up. So I'm excited for the season. I just wanted to talk about that big win, and hopefully we keep winning in SEC play and make a lot of news, a lot of noise. Purcell already has 2 top wins under his belt, or top 10 wins, excuse me. In year 2, he beat LSU. Year 3, he beat Oklahoma. I think if we get another one this year, it's going to be some really fun conversations about what this team can do and what the team can go do in next year and beyond. So I'm excited. I'm ready for women's basketball.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And that's something we'll continue to kind of monitor and discuss on the podcast as we get kind of more fully into the spring and potentially bring back the weekly Mississippi State segment once football season's behind us and baseball ramps up. So we'll definitely continue to monitor that. But they are playing well. I will. In terms of the and beyond, roster retention has not necessarily been the strong suit of the Purcell era, but hopefully that changes this year.
Yeah.
But cool. I think we can wrap up. Anything else, JP?
I don't think so.
Cool. Real quick, how close are you getting back to Georgia?
We just passed Talladega Speedway.
Okay. Cool.
So we're 2 hours from home.
We, as in, is Abby with you?
I wish. No, just me. I don't know why I said we.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, I'd like to
I
think
was a
that
little
we were a
confused.
part of the journey. I like to think
Yeah,
that we were along for the ride, keeping
we
you
basically have
company.
been.
Yeah, keeping you
But that
company
is,
for your travels. Uh, but yeah,
yeah, safe rest of your trip, JP. In terms of everyone who has listened this far, still tune in, whatever. We thank you. We greatly appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. It helps us out, and we'll be back for y'all. Uh, undetermined date Tuesday, probably, if I had to guess.
yeah, I think Tuesday would make a lot of
Um,
sense to preview the next round of college football play, or review the weekend of the NFL, and then talk about the
sure.
upcoming semifinal games.
Tentatively Tuesday, then. We hope to see y'all there, and yeah, peace.
See y'all.